T-shirt number 4. Whoops. Hurrah! Fieros Industries, T-shirt number 4. I am so enthusiastic right now I could die. That was sarcasm, by the way, if you're American. I don't think American people really know sarcasm very well. Okay, anyway, Fieros Story Time. I'm getting sick of this now. I'm absolutely sick of it. I just want to go back to my old school videos where I just did silly things and said stupid shit and messed around and stuff. I'm tired of all this serious bullshit. I feel better though, actually, overall. Oh, fine, I'll leave the fucking logo out, shall I? I don't know. Fieros. I do feel it's a bit like revealing a superpower every time I open my t-shirt. It's like, whoa. What's your secret identity? Fieros. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I feel like I'm just getting bored of this fucking story thing now. So I'm just gonna try and like do it quickly if I can. I feel better. I feel much better. For doing the whole thing. I think talking about the ward stuff specifically has really helped. I just feel lighter overall. I mean, like, just my whole body feels lighter actually. You know, I have put on a bit of weight over the past year, but even my weight feels lighter. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like the emotional side of it feels a lot less. Like my shoulders feel clearer. I feel like burdens have lifted. I feel kind of like my normal self, almost, not completely. There's still got a sense of like being stuffed up somewhat, like in my nose and head, but I feel so much clearer. And it's really this last few videos when I started talking about Ward 12 that things have really clarified. Like I feel like I'm almost feeling like, what was all the fuss about? Like I just feel like I've gone back to maybe where I was about 10 years ago before everything went wrong, or 12 years ago before everything went wrong. Or even further, like back to probably the age of 18, I think. I feel like it's almost like I'm suddenly waking back up to the world that was here all along and going, oh, things are back to normal now, kind of. But let's carry on anyway, because there is still more to say. But there might be less to say than I thought. But I say that every time. Anyway. Okay, so we're going to talk about Ward 12. So we know from the story that I got sectioned and taken overnight to a... Sorry, first I got arrested because I slapped my dad because they'd taken my passport. My mum and dad had taken hold of my passport and then lied to me about the fact that they'd taken it. But they had taken it because I found out later that they had taken it. So I was running on my own intuition to understand that they'd taken the thing, but I trusted it and I was correct. So I feel justified in being angry, basically. Maybe I wasn't justified to slap my dad, but I was justified in being angry because they were lying to me, and I guess, is that justifiable? It's always interesting to find the reasons behind things, as in, I say, oh, okay, so my parents took my passport, that made me angry. Why did that make me angry? Well, because it was my thing, and there's a boundary violation. You know, they were taking my item and against my will and withholding it. Therefore, the correct situation is for me to own my own item. Therefore, I'm angry that they've taken my fucking item. An important item as well. It's not just it's not just a piece of cheese or a pen or something. It's a passport, which is a necessary thing. Plus, I had plans to use that passport to go to foreign countries with money that I didn't have, but I don't know. No, I think the reason why I wanted to go to Australia was because I had that money that I'd found in the bushes, which sounds like a complete mad story in itself, but is absolutely true. And I had about 2 grand's worth of money in different currencies. And I thought, oh yeah, I'll go to Australia on my £2,000. But £2,000 is not enough to get to Australia last minute. Let's have a look online. Well, it wasn't enough. I don't care if it is enough now, but it wasn't enough back in those days to get a last minute flight to Australia. Not even booking it online, just showed up at the airport, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I'll just buy a ticket to Australia. I think it was more like £6,000, honestly. Fly cheap with opodo.co.uk. It's like £3,000 or something, or £6,000. I can't remember, but I didn't have enough. Search flights from Heathrow to Sydney. Yeah. Departure today. Oh, let's pick tomorrow. Right. Okay. Return. Never again. Search flights. Boom 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 boom. Dun 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 dun. Oh, 712. Wow. I don't know. It's different when you show up to an airport and I don't know. Things were cheaper. As in, things were more expensive back in those days. I didn't have enough money, okay? I can't explain it. I didn't have enough money to go to Australia last minute. And then I didn't have my fucking passport anyway, so that's why I was angry, because my parents had taken my passport. They didn't want me to leave the country because they thought that I would go off on some random adventure and probably end up being killed by someone or something like that. Or starved or something. Yeah. Okay, so I slapped my dad because I was angry and because he was being a dick and was lying to me and holding onto my passport and stuff. So I got arrested in a pretty unfavourable way. A painful way, which I thought was far too much force for the situation. And I took some pictures of my bruises and cuts afterwards because I hadn't resisted that arrest. They just pushed me down to the floor and like really hurt my arm. And I don't know why they used so much force, because I'd slapped my dad. It wasn't like I was going ape shit and like punching and kicking or anything. Slapping is not the same action as punching, is it? Now, I hadn't resisted arrest. I hadn't been wrestling with them or anything, or even I wasn't even really wriggling to get free. I was just like, "How can you not? Can you not?" And I would tell you if I was being violent. I would tell you about that. I would say it, you know. And if I was resisting arrest and wrestling with them or whatever, and I would tell you. Obviously, I know I'm telling this story, and I'm not being. Occasionally, I try to paint myself in a decent light, but I don't think I'm going to come off looking good in any way from this story. So it's not like I'm trying to make things look. I'm not coming out looking like the fucking hero, basically. Yeah. Anyway, so I did get arrested and I got taken to the jail cell. The police guy looked after me overnight. I don't know why they left the door open. It was weird. They just had this guy sitting on a chair watching me and kind of reading a paper or something. And then I got seen by the medical psychologist doctor guy from the police. And then I got sectioned by my team of community mental health team. I say it's like it's my team. They're not my team. The team that came to assess me and section me, and then I if you're new to this, why did my parents take my passport anyway? Because there was mental health stuff going on, basically, and they thought I was mad. I was a bit mad by that point. And yeah, so they thought that I was a danger to myself if I was to be able to have freedom of movement, which I understand their thinking behind it, but I don't agree with what they did, and I don't think that it's right, and I don't think that that should have happened in any circumstance. I don't think it's fair, and it's not correct, even if they think, oh, you know, oh, he's got a mental health problem, whatever. I don't think you should be taking things like that, items and passports and stuff. I think it's just that was just wrong. Like, who do they think they are, kind of thing. Anyway, so I got introduced to the ward. So I said goodbye to the police officers. Had to put my belongings into the office to begin with, and they had to check which things I was allowed to have and stuff. That's quite an annoying thing and an invasive thing, to not be able to have control over your possessions. So, like, this whole feeling of, well, these are my keys and my wallet and whatever else that you have to give over to the like office, the sort of nursing office in the ward, that just feels very degrading, and it makes me feel desperate for them at this time. I'm like, oh, you're taking away my stuff, and now I have to ask you for permission to have my own stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Not nice. Anyway, so then I got introduced to all the stuff on the ward with this nurse Daniel, and I didn't really see very much of him after that. Actually, he was kind of in and out. I thought that because he was the first person to show me around, that he would be quite like a key person to me. You know, like at the beginning of a movie, you get introduced to the main characters, and you think, okay, these are going to be the main characters for the rest of this movie. But Daniel was like a main character for like 5 minutes, and then he just sort of popped in and went hello, and he was just kind of there here and there. It was bizarre. But I suppose that a ward is not run like a movie; it's run like a ward. So there wasn't really a main character in the ward other than myself. It was an ensemble cast, and there were just chaotic people running about everywhere. So there was no one particular person who seemed to be the main character. There was a main antagonist. I mean, if I'm the protagonist, there was a main antagonist, and that was Dr. Clifford. So Dr. Clifford was the psychiatric consultant who was responsible for my case. As in, my case meaning me. And can I get out of that fucking place or not? And when can I get out? And do I have to take these fucking medications or not? And when are they going to stop? Or whatever. So she's the antagonist from my point of view. But there's no like there's no stable characters there. Like, everyone sort of pops in and pops out. So it's not like I had one main friend in there, for example. There was a sense of revolvingness. Even the staff. So obviously the staff, they have their shifts, right? So their shifts are like 8 hours, and I guess there are 3 different types of shifts that are done. Like, you get your morning one, your afternoon one, and then your late one and night one. So maybe 4 different types of shifts that go throughout the day. So people are constantly churning around with the nursing staff, so you don't have a consistent sense of presence for the nursing staff. So there's no kind of like through line other than the place, I suppose. So there's me, and then there's the place, and all the people who are in that place are interchangeable. So you've got nurses, and crazy people. I mean, there was one friend, I suppose. I could call him a friend after a while. His name was Mark. He had a messiah complex, and a genius complex. It was like a messianic genius complex, whereby he really, really believed that he had to figure out how we can maximize the resources on this planet so that we can then shoot spaceships off into space and colonize another planet, and he was really actually fervently working into designing how we can actually do that with resources. And it was like maybe it would have worked, but it was just the intensity and the madness around him thinking he was such a genius for being able to figure out all the maths around the resources that we needed, and how long it would take, and the population and stuff. And so it was like he was writing a science fiction novel, but he actually believed it to be true, that kind of thing. And he would tell me these whack plans about how it would go down, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm the fucking Messiah, man." And he had that kind of crazy belief that he actually thought that his plans would work, and that that he would be recognised for it as well. So yeah, that was pretty mad. But other than that, he was a pretty cool guy. I mean, we played a lot of pool and we chatted and stuff. But then, saying that, I mean, he was a broken man as well. So he was cool in that he was around a similar sort of age to me. He was an intelligent person who had obviously gone through some shit, traumatized, and had some delusions about himself, delusions of grandeur. And when that combined with his sense of intelligence and deeply logical and analytical mind, it just gave him this kind of genius complex. So he had this massive grandiose delusion about himself as being a savior for mankind because of his intense intelligence. So but he was a decent guy. He was a fairly regular person, as in like he's going to be on the ward. You're going to be able to chat to him a little bit every day. So he was kind of a regular, I suppose. The nurses feel very interchangeable. There's another nurse guy there called Anthony. He was okay. He was a good nurse. He was a very happy, cheerful person, which was welcome. So that was nice that he had a nice bright energy, and he was less brisk than the others. You know, he had a caring way about him, but he was more happy than caring, if that makes sense. Yeah, but he was good. It was good to have him there. There was another nurse girl. I forget her name, but she was helpful a little bit. We had some conversations with me, Anthony, and this nurse girl. Just about like I was feeling hopeless basically, and they helped to try and cheer me up, and it worked. They did help. So yeah, basically the way I got through this whole time was by getting input from these nurses, by talking to them, really, because I wasn't having any therapy. I think it would have been helpful to have therapy, even during that time. You know, maybe they don't see it like that. Maybe they see it as though because it's a hospital situation, it's more of a critical time, and they don't offer psychological therapies, or they didn't in that particular ward at that particular time. I mean, every ward is different, right? Every ward is different, and things change and progress as we go through time. So, for example, I've heard of other places where they do actually have group therapy or psychotherapy, like on the ward while you're staying there. And I think that it would have been beneficial for me to have it, because none of the people who were there really were able to listen to me. And if they were only able to listen in short chunks, like 5 or 10 minutes, because they had a lot going on. Their main nursing staff protocols were medication, observation, bit of cleaning and tidying of things, writing notes. Notes was massive. What else? They have to like fucking take down their observational notes, and they have to have their meetings, and it's just a very busybody type of position to be in. It's weird. It's strange, because in a psychological setting you would have thought that the nursing would have been more psychological based, but it's still a lot of rushing around and writing things on paper and following protocols and handing out medication. It's very physical based, if that makes sense, even though it's a mind place. So bizarre. There was this one trainee nurse who was a complete waste of space and time. I feel like she was doing her rotation. You know, like you do your training to be a something. Don't know what she was training to be, but she was training to be a something, and she'd got stuck in this ward as a trainee nurse or a trainee something. Probably a trainee psychiatric nurse or a trainee psychologist. I don't know what it was, but she was a trainee, right? And she just looked like she was trying to pretend she didn't see anything. So she was just there like po-faced and staring into space. So she was, I don't think she was bored. I think she was like, oh my god, I cannot actually believe the types of things I am seeing here. Not that there was anything particularly major, but it's like the way that people would behave and the way that people would talk to each other and stuff. Like most people's sentences and talking was full of nonsense and didn't make any sense. Alright, so I'm itching my nose again, so let's just do a little bit of itching. And let's leave it. Okay. There's probably a lot of energy streaming through this nose area. That's why it's getting itchy. Yeah, so this trainee nurse was terrible. She was useless. She just stood there like this, drifting off into space, and as though she was trying to pretend she wasn't there and to just hope that things would pass by as quickly as possible, which is not helpful. She was kind of attractive as well, and yeah, I tried to speak to her every now and again, and she was just very I'm like, oh dear. What else? So there was this thing called patient protected time, which I still don't understand it to this day what exactly it is. It was like 20 minutes of playing Scrabble is all I can really understand it to be. 20 minutes or half an hour of playing Scrabble. That's called patient protected time. What does that mean? And I think it's supposed to be where all the nurses are all in one place and you're supposed to hang out. So we had patient protected time. I think that happens every day in the week. And it was like just before lunch and people would just basically play Scrabble. That was it. And if you didn't want to play Scrabble, you're fucked. So you just have to kind of sit around. Oh god, it's such a horrible place. Because your options for activities, I mean, maybe if you had a different mindset, then it would be better. But because you're trapped, right, it's not great. So you do have things you can do. But I was depressed. So I didn't really see the options of things to do as being great. So what can you do on the ward? Well, they've got a TV lounge, which is one fairly small TV and a couch. Or 2 couches. Right? And you got all these different people that want to watch different things, so that's pretty crap. So you get people watching TV in there. Then you got an outside smoking bit called the garden, or smoking area, smoking garden, which is pretty fucking small. And because it's in a psychiatric ward, it can't be free garden. Like you can't have access to the outside world. So it's in this kind of crammed in courtyard. It's about 10 meters square. So like 10 meters by 10 meters. Yeah, maybe less. In a little square with a little kind of shelter bit and some what do you call those things? Paving slabs and gravel and a few plants and some cigarette trays, whatever, ashtrays. And man, one of the things on the ward was exercise. That it's quite difficult to get exercise. So, like, what can you do? You can basically walk up and down the fucking corridors. One thing that I did was like did this kind of jogging back and forth thing between the like in the outside, in the fucking outside bit. What do you call it? The courtyard bit, the smoking area courtyard bit. I was like, I need to get some exercise, man, because my legs are feeling all like jittery and stuff because I've been trapped in this place, and you can't get exercise. Like walking up and down the corridors is only so much exercise, you know, and it's like the body needs to exercise. So being trapped in one place is like the energy is very trapped, so you need to move your legs and do stuff and get a flow of blood through you to feel good. And I tried to do some exercise, and so what would I do? You just kind of walk up and down the corridor. I mean, how depressing is that? That your fucking exercise for the day is to walk up and down a corridor, right? And then the next slightly better bit of exercise is to run back and forth in a 10-meter space. Touch the wall, run back after like 3 steps, touch the wall, run back, and do that 10 times. Like, you can't fucking exercise. And they didn't have... Did they have exercise bikes? They might have had one exercise bike in the PE lounge thing, but I feel like that room was only open at certain times. Yeah. So they did have exercise classes, but it was very slow type of exercises. So that's bad. They need some like exercise bikes or something so that people can like let off some steam. Because that was very hard. I mean, like that feeling of being contained in that place and not being able to run off energy or get rid of energy anyway because there was no, you can't exercise, man. You need to be able to exercise. Like here at home, my minimum exercise is to walk around the block, like the smallest block. And that's like, do that and that will help to feel slightly better because you get the fresh air. I say fresh because it's fucking polluted around this area. But you get fresh air while moving your legs and stuff. Then the next level is I can go to the middle block, which is slightly longer. It takes about 15-20 minutes to walk around. And then the next level is I can do the slightly bigger block, and that'll take about half an hour to walk around. Then, of course, I could run around the blocks, like jog around the block, small one, middle one, or big one. And that's just if I want to keep things fairly low level. But then I've got the bike, my push bike that I can ride around on, and I could even go to the gym, but I never really go to the gym because I don't like the atmospheres of gyms. It's too pressury and everyone looks at you and stuff, and I don't like it. It's all very ego based. I don't like the feeling of it there. Yeah, but in this ward, exercise was just very hard to come by. So that's something that could be improved. Extra exercise facilities. Like there was another guy in there who felt that same urge. Needs to exercise. Needs to do something to get rid of this excess energy in the legs. Because otherwise you're just sitting around or lying around the whole time. And that's no good. That builds up energy in your legs and you feel stagnant and jittery and stuff, and that needs to go somewhere. So this one guy, he would just be walking up and down the corridors like a mad person. We're all fucking mad in there in our own way, including the nurses. But yeah, that's basically what you can do. And he would just like walk back and forth at quite a quick pace just to get some exercise. Fair play to him. What else can I say about Ward 12? Well, I spent a lot of time in bed. Honestly, a lot of time in bed. And so I mentioned about the breakfast, lunch and dinner being the best things of the day. That was it. So there were other activities that you could do. They had a pool table there, proper full-size pool table, so it was really good. Didn't have to put any money in it either. Free to play, obviously. They had a foosball table. I didn't really play much foosball. Table football, if you didn't know what that was. They got a piano there, which was nice. Nice touch, very good. Have a piano there because I'm a pianist, kind of. I play a bit of piano. And I got my parents to bring me some piano music so I could just do some of that. But again, I mean, I was already depressed, and in any other scenario, that would be okay. In fact, that would be great because you've got this games room where you can play foosball, you can play pool, you got a piano there, you got like puzzles over in the corner. In a way, that's a great little holiday place to be. You know, you get your meals made for you 3 times a day. You got clean sheets all the time. It's kind of like a hotel, but it smells like a hospital. But it's like a hotel. Games. There's table tennis table there as well. TV. You know, the only thing missing really is outside a beach and a swimming pool. But because you are trapped and you cannot leave, it puts this whole other angle on it. It's a prison, and no matter how good the facilities inside the prison are, you are still constantly aware that you are in a prison situation. As in, you know, yeah, I'm playing the piano on my little, I'm having fun on the piano, and then I finish the piano, and oh, I'm still trapped on the ward, and I can't leave, and I'm not allowed to go, and there's a legal fucking thing to make sure I stay here. And I have to take medicines because they all think that I'm nuts. So, does that make sense? So, even though sounds very nice, and the facilities are good, and they were better than the first ward that I was on, Ward 10 in Wexham Park Hospital. But what I'm saying is that from my personal perspective, my personal feeling about it is, you know, you can play pool and you can play foosball and you can play the piano, but you're still in a prison type of situation. You're still trapped. So that was what gave it the sense of meaninglessness, because I couldn't get a sense of the context, because I felt like I might be in there forever. I just felt like I couldn't contextualize the situation I was in terms of a wider experience. I couldn't see it from the perspective of being out and about, and that this was a cool place for me to be because it was quite restful and I didn't have to do anything if I didn't want to do anything, and I could just play these games and stuff. I could only see it from inside the situation, like inside that perspective, you know. I mean, like, for example, if I went there now and if someone was to say to me, okay, you're going to do 2.5 months in a psychiatric ward, where after about 3 weeks you will be able to have like a few hours leave per day, 4 hours or so leave per day, I'd be like, yeah, great, fine. Like, that's all I do now anyway. Like, I spend most of my time at home anyway because it's cold out. Fine, let's have 2.5 months over the winter where I get 4 hours a day outside if I need to. Otherwise, I just hang around inside. There's loads of people in there as well. I can talk to anyone. You know, it would be quite a good situation for me to be in there at this time. But because of the way that it was, you know, that would be if I was to take that as a free choice. That would to be a holiday. That would have the philosophical understanding of it being a free choice and it being a holiday. Whereas me being in the hospital was not a free choice, it was a prison. So I'm trying to explain to you why maybe from the outside it sounds pretty cushy. You know, you're like, okay, yeah, you got these cool facilities and stuff, but yeah, I'm not allowed out though. Okay, that's like trumps all of it. That takes the biscuit kind of thing. It would be fine if I lived somewhere and then I got to go and visit this cool place with all this, you know, all these activities and stuff in there. But that wasn't the situation. The very fact that I was not allowed to leave made everything worse. It just made put this whole negative feeling about everything. Everything was pointless and worthless, and it wouldn't contribute to anything because it was like a closed system. So anything I did in there just felt like I just could not see how it would relate to the outside world because it felt so contained. So it felt like anything I did in there also felt contained. So it's sort of like as though it wouldn't add to anything or couldn't contribute to anything. Yeah, and it was like, I don't know how can I even contact the outside world? I felt so cut off from normal life, because I couldn't just go out and see what other people were doing. I couldn't just go out to the shop. I couldn't just go out to a coffee shop. I couldn't go around to my mates when I wanted to go around to my mates. I couldn't do anything in a free way. The only free choice things I could do were in that limited situation, and that was pretty depressing. And it's hard to express just how and why that affected me so much. I think it was the hopelessness of the situation and the powerlessness as well. Let's not forget the powerlessness. So the person who had the most power over my life at that time was a person called Dr. Clifford. Now, she was pretty draconian. She actually had a limp, like a sort of slight disfiguring of her right side, actually. I think maybe even one of her arms was slightly twisty. I can't remember exactly. But I don't know, I felt like, why? How come you're such a bitch, though? Like, doesn't that soften you up at all? Doesn't that not, like... I just assumed, okay, so she's had this problem for her whole life, and yet she's still a bitch. And, like, does that not make you slightly more compassionate somehow because you've gone through some difficulties yourself? I don't know. But it didn't. She was just a right bitch. Very, very hard-nosed, unfeeling, uncaring person. Maybe that was necessary in that situation. And you know what though? I hate trying to explain things from other people's perspective all the fucking time. I hate trying to kind of make excuses for things, make excuses for these people. Like, oh, maybe it was good that she was a bitch. Fuck that. She was a bitch. And I hated her, and she had all this power over my life, and I never got to see this person. Sorry. So this person had power to change my medication, to give me leave, to change my section, all sorts of things she could do. And I got to see her like once every 2 weeks. So you have to wait 2 weeks while they observe you and write their fucking things in their little boxes and stuff on their fucking clipboards, and just be drifting around, not knowing what's going on and why, for 2 weeks. And then you have a meeting with this bitch who says, oh, maybe I should put some fucking... maybe I should give you a anti-side effect medication pill so that you can stop the slurring of the words and you can have your neck upright. And I felt like I really had to campaign with my dad. I had to really talk to my dad and say, look, we really need to like push for this anti-side effect thing. I mean, I honestly wanted at that time I was just pushing to be set free. And my dad was quite present there in terms of being helpful. And my mum was also present, but my dad was present as a campaigner. And I think my dad had what he saw as my best interest at heart, but he didn't have my best interest from my perspective. He had my best interest from his perspective. And he didn't want me to just kind of be set free randomly, because he obviously wanted me to go back to normal and not to be suffering from this psychosis thing anymore. So although I was always saying, look, I just want to get out, and I want them to reduce my medication, and I want to be set free, and he would kind of be like, he was sort of on my side, but then not on my side as well, because he was more on the side of he wants me to get better first. But I was like, I shouldn't be here, and we need to like get them to review my case and stuff, and change my medication, and get me out of here and things, and change my section. I just wanted to be home was the main thing I wanted. I wanted to be out of that place. So I don't think my dad campaigned for that, but he did campaign to make sure that I was getting the best treatment that I could have in there, and that I was being listened to. So he was helpful then. Yeah. He also campaigned to make sure that I didn't get sent back to Ward 10 in Wexham Park, because I'd obviously escaped from that ward previously. So it actually came about that I was going to be taken back to Ward 10, but when my dad was told about this, he was up in arms immediately, because I'd escaped from Ward 10 already. And he didn't want me to escape again, and he thought that it was silly that they would send me back to somewhere that I'd easily escaped from before, and that I wasn't enjoying being there, and it wasn't the best place for me. But a bed had come up in that ward again, and I was going to be moved there quite soon. And I was quite unhappy about that, because also that ward was a shithole. Alright, the ward I was on was 10 times better compared to the first fucking ward. Like, this ward that I was on the ground floor. If you've been following these videos, remember that in one of the previous ones I was talking about how being suspended on the first floor in Ward 10 was really distressing for me. I found that really hard, because I was used to being in touch with the ground, and that was important to me, just feeling grounded. And being on the first floor just felt like I was, whoa, I didn't feel settled. I felt very unsafe about that. Not unsafe like something bad was going to happen, but just weird. I felt not good. Felt very unsettled, being constantly on first floor. It's like I could feel the fact that I was on the first floor. It didn't feel like I was really touching ground, you know. Yeah, so this second ward that I was on, Ward 12, was ground floor. So I was in touch with the ground. So that was a positive, yeah. And Ward 10 had this crappy keyboard thing, which didn't have a full range of keys, and it was old, and it didn't really work very well. Ward 10 was small and cramped. First floor was bad, as I say. It just felt very, very cramped in there. And so Ward 12 was bigger, more expansive, many more activities to engage in, much better facilities, bigger room even, I think. And yeah, so Ward 12 overall was much better for me, and I was glad to be in Ward 12 over Ward 10. Obviously, I didn't want to be in any ward at all, but I was glad to be in that one rather than Ward 10. And, you know, in some ways I was pleased because there was a piano there. And so I could make some meaning of that situation, because I saw it as that, okay, so I can get better at the piano while I'm here. So that's a good aspect of it. I didn't really actually improve that much on the piano while I was there, to be honest, though. I did play on it a bit. I improved more at pool than anything. So that was a positive meaning to take from it. Yeah. What else? Well, I feel like I said enough now. Maybe I should just like review what I've already said. So there's a lot of corridors in the ward. Feeling of being trapped is very pervasive. Made even more pervasive feeling because of the fact that it was unclear how long I would be there for. So that sense of uncertainty immediately, because I was already depressed, immediately went to the negative side. So it was uncertain how long I would be there for. I would catastrophize, is a word that they say. I would make the worst possible conclusion from that, and then believe that conclusion to be the case. which would be something along the lines of, I'm never going to get out of here, right? So yeah, I mean, like, I feel that if I'd known more clearly that I was going to get out, or that there was even a strong possibility that I would come out of hospital, and if someone was to reassure me of that, then I probably wouldn't have felt so terrible, because I would have been more optimistic and been able to say, okay, I'm going to be here for a little while, but people get out, I will get out. Yeah. What else? Okay, so I used to spend a lot of time in my bed, and I had this strange medication thing, which was a strange side effect of the medication. So I was taking antipsychotic and antidepressant medications that were administered in the mornings, maybe in the evenings as well. And one of them was called risperidone, which was the antipsychotic one, and the antidepressant one, I believe, was called citalopram. There you go. And what else? Oh, so I'd spent a lot of time in bed because I was depressed, and I was just trying to like numb out by trying to sleep. So I was just trying to sort of, I'd wake up, I'd go have breakfast, and I'd go back to bed, and I'd just try and put myself into this kind of sleep state, which didn't really work, but I could get this kind of, get close to sleep. I was sort of like in a restful, sleepy, blurry sleep thing, but it was never quite full sleep, and it was just like, it was like I was trying to push myself down to sleep as much as I could, and I couldn't really actually sleep properly, because I just didn't feel like there was anything worth doing. And so the best thing I felt that I could actually do was to just kill the time until lunch, and then kill the time until dinner, and then kill the time until the morning, then kill the time until lunch, then kill the time until dinner by trying to sleep it off. Like, just, okay, one of the problems here is that being awake is painful. Being alive, my emotions are in a lot of pain, and my mind is in a lot of pain. So let's sleep. Try and sleep. Turn it off, turn the fucking system off to rest. And because while I was asleep, I couldn't feel anything. So to try and push myself down to that sleep state, that's what I mainly did for most of the time, actually. And one of the strange side effect, was while I was lying down, I used to get this weird feeling like I was getting an electric shock go through my nervous system. Zzz, zzz. And it was most unsettling, uncomfortable feeling, because it was right through the actual feeling of the nerves. And it wasn't actually an electric shock. It wasn't like a big one. It was just a very uncomfortable pulse that went all through my nerves. And it was very, very unsettling and horrible, actually, because it would happen every 10 seconds or so, or maybe 15 seconds, like 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 15. You're like, ah, God. It's so uncomfortable. Oh, God, the things of what I've been through. I'm alright, it's not like a horror story, but it is a kind of horror story, in a way. It's a psychological horror story, if not a, not a physical horror story, but it's a psychological horror story. So, so I was lying in bed, having this horrible, weird feeling going through me every 10, 15, 20 seconds, not knowing where it came from, and attributing it to the medication. And not knowing how to stop it either. So, God, just horrible feeling. It's like really deep inside, and it just flashed through your whole body, through the head, and through the body as well. Oh God. It would happen mainly when I was lying down, and if I was up and about, I wouldn't. I mean, I'd feel it occasionally, but it was more observable when I was lying down. So occasionally that feeling doing that would make me want to get up and do some exercise to try and get out of that feeling, basically. But as I said, the exercise was not easy to do because you could only walk up and down the ward or out in the little garden bit. Yeah. I think if you were a smoker, it was slightly better to be in there because then you had something to break up the day. You can have a cigarette and talk to people while having a cigarette, but I wasn't a smoker at that time. Yeah. And I didn't fancy it either. I think I might have had one puff on a cigarette while I was there, but nah, it wasn't for me at that time. Oh God, are you getting a sense of this emptiness, expanse, being in this black hole? Lying in bed, and this black horrible feeling, and this oppressive feeling in my head as well, of this psychological torment, this pain, this trying to figure out ways to escape and not being able to figure out any ways to escape, and being in this doom and gloom feeling of despair about the fact that I'm never going to get out, and it's going to be one time they said, oh, probably be about 5 or 6 weeks, or maybe no, 11 weeks or something. They said some number of weeks, or 9 weeks, or 9 weeks I think they said at that time, or 11 weeks, some number of weeks that they said, oh, you know, it'll probably be about this number of weeks before you get out. And I was like, oh, that's loads, that's ages. You mean I have to sit through this, lie down through this for another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many fucking 9 weeks. I feel it was 9, even though the total stay of it was 9. But I feel like they said 8 or 9 weeks, or 11 weeks, some amount of weeks. And just to know that, then, after having been in there for a while, and to have this number being given to you, okay, it's going to be about 8 weeks or 9 weeks more, that's worse at that time, because I just got suicidal at that point when they told me, all right, because I'd been in there for a while. As I say, I think it would have been different if I'd known from the beginning, because the thing about this whole thing was the changeability and uncertainty of the time period. The time period fucked with you, man. Fucked with me anyway. The section was 3 months to begin with, but then they have the option to extend it. So it just feels like possibly endless staying in there. And the goalposts are always being moved, either closer if you're doing well, or further away if you're doing badly. So, yeah. So they told me this 8 weeks or 9 weeks thing, and I was just so unhappy. I was just suicidal from it. I just thought this is horrible, because if you give someone a length of time and you say, okay, you're going to have to sit through this same shit for 9 more weeks, having already been depressed as fuck in your bed and finding the situation intolerable, and feeling trapped and have this horrible medication feeling and stuff, and then to project that forward for another 8 or 9 weeks, it just feels like hell. Oh, by the way, yeah, you're going to be here for another 9 weeks, and you just project that feeling of hell for 9 further weeks, and it intensifies it. But if you were to live it day by day, it wouldn't feel like that. But yeah, so that was shit. Yeah, well, let's leave it at that. God damn, it's depressing. Oh, no wonder I was fucking depressed when I came out of there for years afterwards. Oh, God. I think the ward made me depressed, actually. Yeah. I'd only ever experienced mild depression up until that point, but the being on the ward made me severely depressed and suicidal. Goodbye.